Hello and welcome to a special episode of Talkin' Reptiles. I'm Mark Perpetua of Reptile Encounters, and with my good friends at Hudson Valley Reptile and Rescue, we're able to bring you this series on a variety of different amazing reptiles. And one of the things we want to do is get out of the studio and get out in nature. And we just lucked out with this one. We are currently in Saugerties, New York, where they are building a new housing development. And last year, I was able to rescue a really big snapping turtle that was chased out of the wetlands in the area they're building. Now, because the wetlands are so marshy, they can't build in them. And behind me, you can see standing trees that are not going to be cleared because that's all swampland. But to also protect the houses and the basements, they built this containment pond that I'm standing in. So this is actually a man-made pond in a part of that development to control floodwater. But what we see here right now, as quickly as they built it, is a natural process called succession is going to take place. And frogs, they made it over here quickly. Frogs were moving in from the nearby wetlands, and as we came over today, we found lots of green frogs, including some green frog eggs. So this is already establishing an animal population. On top of that, there's plenty of insects that moved in here, and to my biggest amazement, I found fish in here. And not sure how they got in here, but there are small fish fry. What kind they are, we can't tell yet, but there is, believe it or not, the beginning of a food chain. And just like that big snapping turtle that moved out of the wetlands last year, we'd also notice there's one that moved into the containment pond. But with all this available food, I think what we're gonna do is we're just gonna go in, we're gonna catch him to talk about the common snapping turtle, and then we're just gonna release him and let's see how things develop in this newly developing ecosystem. So here we go. So the snapping turtle is hiding right under this mat of algae and some fallen branches. There's not a lot of cover in here yet, so it's a perfect opportunity for us to be able to find him very easily. So I'm just gonna go right on in there, and we're gonna show you how inoffensive a snapping turtle actually is when it's in the water. As I approach this guy, I want to kind of approach him to corral him into the shallows, simply because this is a newly dug pond, as we said, man-made, and I've noticed as I start to enter it, not only am I sinking in the mud, but I'm creating a big plume, and I don't want to lose sight of him. Now, a lot of people would think we're crazy approaching a snapping turtle in the water like this, but in my years of working and handling snappers, I've noticed in the water they're really inoffensive. And what I'm going to try to do is to get him to turn around. So here's that clump of algae I pointed at in the beginning, and there he is. He's right here in front of me, and we're going to see what happens when I approach him. And he's not even moving. Normally what a snapper will do is just bury themselves down at the bottom and let their camouflage do the work. So let me go ahead and see if we can get him right now without him turning around, because this cloud of dust is getting deeper and deeper. All right, I got him. Now, here he comes. Check him out. So what I did was made sure I knew where his head was first, because obviously that's the snapping end. And I grabbed him by the tail. Now, there's a lot of controversy over grabbing the tail, but I gotta tell you, when he's in the water, that's the end that doesn't bite. It's a thick, meaty tail, and one of the things I've noticed is if you're gentle with him, it doesn't really hurt him, and the water's gonna help support a lot of his weight. And then I quickly grabbed him under the shell to support it once we got him out. But check him out, there he is. That's why they're called snappers, and that's why you don't want that head facing you. This is a good size snapper, although they can get larger. And by taking a look at the position of his cloaca on his tail, I could tell very easily that this is a male. And male snappers do get bigger than females. He's gonna grow to be somewhere around 15 inch in shell length and probably weigh somewhere between 30 and 40 pounds. I believe I read somewhere that the record size for common snappers is around 80 pounds in weight, but that just depends on how much food they find and how fat they get. But check this guy out. He's a beautiful animal. In the water, he wanted nothing to do with me, but once we pulled him out of his environment, he's unsure of my intentions. And here's the biggest reason. Unlike most turtles, snapping turtles don't have a big plastron, which is the bottom part of their shell. And that bottom part of their shell being really narrow makes them feel less protected. And you'll notice I can get way up here next to his arms and next to his head, and he's not biting me because, well, he can't reach me. His head is designed for striking up and over the top of him when he's hunting or defending himself. So it's an animal that puts on a big show of aggression to convince you to back away because he's afraid you're going to flip him over and hit at all those soft body parts. But I promise you, if you leave a snapper alone, it'll gladly leave you alone. You see, we approach this guy in the water, and unless you smacked him on the head or stepped on him, there's very little chance of being bitten by a snapping turtle when you're out in the wild. And my identification's correct. If the camera's right, you'll be able to tell the same way I did that this is a male. Also, check that out. Not only does his head come straight out, saw how it comes backwards? Yeah, they got a long neck. It's almost as long as their shell. Not only do they strike up, they can stretch back, which is why I want to make sure he's facing the camera so you can see him, but he doesn't end up hanging off one of my earlobes or my nose. The other thing I want to point out is their scientific name. It's Chaledra serpentina, and it's that strike that gives them their species name, serpentina. They strike like a snake. They have a large strike range, and yeah, so that's something you want to avoid. If you do happen to see one crossing the road or your driveway, remember, stay behind it. Don't get over the top of it where it can reach you. And if you grab it lightly by the tail to scoop it up underneath, you can actually safely move it to a new area. One more thing to point out, when we help turtles crossing the road, they figured out where they want to go, whatever the reason might be. Whether it be a male like this moving from the wetlands to a new pond, or a female looking for a place to lay their eggs, they're pretty determined to get where they want to go. So always push them in the same direction. Don't put them back in the wetlands. If it's a female looking to lay her eggs, she needs to be in a place where those eggs aren't going to flood. So we're going to go ahead and let this guy go. He is getting a little more snappy. And like I said, now that the containment pond is starting to go through succession, it looks like there's going to be plenty of food here moving forward. And don't think that snappers are just carnivores. I found out the hard way by decorating a cage when I was younger with a small snapper that they will eat plenty of plant life. So if he needs to fill in between his meaty diet, I'm sure some of the leaves and things that fall in here and eventually grow will also give him a good chance at doing very well in this containment pond. So here we go. We're going to let him go. Thank you for letting us spend time with you. And there he goes. Now he's going to swim away.